justice, you start with justice. And I think a lot of us, especially, I don't know much about your context outside of what I experienced through your work and other, distant stuff. I've
Yeah.
been in the US my whole life, but I know here, especially, the concept of justice is retributive always. I mean, it's retribution, just desserts. Of course, we've seen the real deep ramifications of that as racism becomes clearer and systemically so, death penalty, all these things.
Mm.
And what I loved about your chapter was this section where you go from John 3 and you talk about, the famous verse, for God so loved, but then you say we often skip the next little section about, hey, and there's this God loves in the kind of way that light is going to expose evil for what it is. And evil needs to be on watch, essentially. Can you talk about our human longing for justice and Jesus's vision for it? I think
Mm.
you really get at some of that in this chapter.
Yeah, that chapter on justice is actually quite dense, and I did think when I reread the book recently that if I was doing it again, I might try to clarify that justice chapter particularly. But I hope it
Hmm.
doesn't stop people getting to it. But the thing is this: in the Bible, justice is about God putting the world right, and
Hmm.
the idea of putting something right. I now cycle around Oxford, and if the chain comes off, it needs to be put right. And if something gets broken, I need to take it to the shop and say, "Can you put this right?" And that
Hmm.
means, in a sense, passing judgment on what's gone wrong. This chain shouldn't be on that way; it should be on this way. So we're going to say no to that in order to say yes to this. So
Yeah.
this justice thing is about saying the ultimate goal is to get the whole thing right and get people right and so on. So we need to say no to the things that get people wrong, to the things that dehumanize and distort and destroy human life and God's world. The trouble has been that people have so seen that necessity of saying no that then that's all they're really interested in. Somebody has done bad things and they need to be punished, and that's it. Without really then thinking, hang on, how can this be within the larger context of what in some countries they call restorative justice? My wife used to work in
Yeah.
the prison service here, and once we went to New Zealand, where in the prison service in New Zealand, they are very good on restorative justice. It's an old Maori concept which the country has taken up, which is about getting together different bits of the community that have been hurt by whatever
Yeah.
bad things have happened, and saying with a larger group of people, how can we put this right? How can we restore a healthy community here? And that's not easy. In fact, it's
Hmm.
often very painful. In a sense, it's what Desmond Tutu was doing in the Commission for Truth and Reconciliation in Southern Africa, trying to say the only way forward is through forgiveness, restoration, aiming at the ultimate goal of putting
Hmm.
things right. So John's gospel is, like Paul's writings are, about God putting the world right. And in order to do that, saying no to that which is corrupting the world. But it's got to be, the no has got to be the reflex of the big yes which God intends to give. I know that may
Hmm.
sound like Karl Barth, but fair enough to that point.
Yeah. No. Point well said, and I appreciate your restorative justice
Mm.
conversation. I come out of Anabaptist communities
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
traditionally, and the restorative justice movement has been one of the things that Mennonites have really tried to lean into out here, and creating spaces for victims and offenders to discern together what actually makes men amends here. Of course, I would assume there's limits to that. I mean, murder and there's things
Sure.
in some sense, but
Sure.
um,
But
but yeah,
the limits are probably further down the road than many people like to imagine.
absolutely, absolutely.